Hey guys, quick tutorial today. I'm going to show you how to render very simple grass using hair simulations like I use for this render here. Let's jump straight into this. So I have quite an ugly scene set up here, but it's going to fit the purpose of this video. So to render hairs, we need to tell it what polygons we want to simulate the hairs onto. So I've created a plane here with a load of polygons, and I've gone ahead and selected every polygon that we want to simulate our hair onto. And then coming up to the top, I'm going to go simulate hair objects, add hair. This is going to add all these hairs to these polygons that we had selected. And there's two things to note here. We've gained a new object called hair. We've gained a new material called hair material. And as well, this plane that we had our polygon selections, it's created a selection tag right here. So if I turn my IPR on, you don't need to use Redshift for this. I just wanted a live view while I talked about it. You can see we don't have any hairs here at all. And this is because in our render settings, we need to come in and turn this tick box on called hair renders. So now updating my scene, you'll see we have all these hairs that are very long, very grey and look nothing like grass. So let's go ahead and change some parameters. So in our hair object, you have a load of tabs here. And the two tabs we mainly want to focus on are guides and hairs. So under guides, we have length. So this is the length of our grass. So I'm going to reduce this to like 30 centimeters. And our segments is how many segments we are seeing within our guides. I don't really need 8. I'm going to reduce this to 3. Cool. On our root, we have Polygon Vertex. So this is simulating hairs on each of the points on our plane, but this looks very uniform. So we're going to go ahead and change this to Polygon Area. But this didn't actually update anything. So down in editing, right at the bottom, you can see we have buttons here called Reroute and Regrow. If we go ahead and click both these buttons, it will then update our scene. And you can see now this is generated onto our polygon area instead. Cool. Now I don't think we have enough hairs in this scene. So go into our hairs tab. I'm going to increase our count here to like 10,000. So now we have 10,000 hairs being simulated here, and it looks a lot denser and more like grass. Our segments is how many segments is in our render. I don't feel like it needs as many as 12, so I'm going to reduce this to 8. Cool. Let's do some material work now. So coming down to this new material that it created for us, our hair material, we're going to go ahead and change the color. So this is a ramp. I'm going to change this from maybe a darker green to a lighter green. And this obviously controls the color of our grass. But once this is done, you see it doesn't look quite right. It's got this like white specular that looks a little out of place. So coming to our specular tab, I'm going to change this to like a lighter green, and this makes a huge difference and make this look like grass pretty much straight away. Cool. I'm going to quickly come down and grab a side view for this next bit. So the next tab we're going to look at is thickness. So this controls how thick our grass is both at the root and the tip of our grass. So if we change our root to 3, we get a really thick grass at the root. Or maybe we want it the other way, so it gets bigger as it goes up. And this has a very like cartoony grassy look to it. Anyway, I'm going to reduce this back to 0.1. So the variation on this is going to control the difference between all the grass. So if I change this to like 0.5, it's quite hard to see, but some of these grass now don't taper to a point. They more have a square or rounded edge on them. So it's just some variation between them. The next one we want to have a look at is our length. We don't want all these grass the same length. So on our length tab, I'm going to turn our tick box on and just increase our variation to say like 40%. Now these hairs are very uniform in the sense that they're all just pointing straight upwards. So we need to add some like dynamics to this. Now there's two I usually go for when I'm working with grass, and this is usually curl or bend. They're near the bottom. So let's start with bend. So this is just going to bend our grass in random directions and make it look a lot less uniform. I grab a section here, and we can increase our bend percentage to something a bit steeper, say 30%. This is going to make the bend in all random directions, and we can increase our variation as well to like 30%. So this is the sort of thing I'd use if I had like static grass. Now the other one I use is curl, and curl I use if I'm trying to simulate that there's wind in a static scene. You can see they're all being like forced to like bend over in the same direction. And this is probably a little steep. So if I reduce this to like 30 degrees, and again up our variation, so now they're all slightly different. So I'm going to turn this off and go back to bends for now. The next one we want is our density. So if I go ahead and look from our top view, this grass is being simulated on our polygons, but there's no like sense of like some more grass in one place and less in another place, and we can do this through our density. So turning on our density tab, and then under texture going noise, it's going to apply our grass in a noise texture now. So in the white areas it's going to apply it, but in the black areas it's not. So in our noise I'm going to increase this to maybe like 300% so we get a bigger noise map, and we can come down and change our high and low clip. So if I reduce our high clip, it makes our whites whiter, and then up in our low clip makes our blacks blacker, so we have areas that there is no grass at all. Awesome, looking good. So now you can see we have like no grass over here. Maybe this area has been stepped on a lot, but we have grass in other places. Yeah. And if we don't like how our noise is looking, we can come up and change the seed of our noise, which will get different areas that are now being cut off. So maybe I now have this like dense area over here, and now I have this patch here that's like got no grass at all. So the final 2 points to talk about is I can find an example of this. You can see here we have this grass pointing either in our rock or it's coming out of our rock, which doesn't look correct. So there's 2 things we can do about this, is use our hair tools. So in Simulate, hair tools, 2 tools I use for this are cut and comb or brush. So clicking on our hairs so we can see our guides, if I'm with my cut tool I can just come around and cut the top of these hairs off, and you can see here they're getting shorter. Likewise, if I come hair tools and brush, making my selection tool bigger, we can just brush this hair away from this rock. So now it gives the sense that this rock is maybe pushing this hair away, but also it's no longer intersecting with the rock. And I might usually just come around and do this all the way around my object, so that this hair is being pushed away from this rock. Another thing to note is you can update your selection. So this selection tag we have on our plane, say I no longer want any hairs in this corner here. If I deselect this corner and then go select, set selection, this will update the selection. And then again, I can go into hairs under guides and say reroute and regrow, and now we have no hairs in this corner here. And one last thing, if you are using Redshift, Redshift is very smart in the way it handles hair materials. If I go ahead and go Redshift materials and create a hair material, and applying this material to our hair object, if we go into the nodes, you see we actually have an extra node here. So this is our Redshift material here, and this extra node is actually all the parameters that are being pulled out of our physical material from Cinema. So you don't have to update anything in your Redshift hair material. Instead, you can just change everything in your Cinema 4D material here. So this is how I create grass using hair simulations if I'm not using anything like the Forester plugin. Hopefully this was helpful, and thank you for watching.